Number 5 on my list, Tyron Woodley. NCAA D1 wrestler. I would put him as a welterweight legend, having defeated Robbie Lawler for the title and having defended in the way that he did. Speaking of that, he defended it against Damian Maia. Just, I believe it was a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. Defended against Damian Maia, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu king of the UFC. And Maia went 0 for 21 on takedowns against Tyron Woodley. That in and of itself, to me, is a stat that should propel anyone into any top list of wrestling, because that's just very impressive as it is. Number 4, King of Cringe, Henry Cejudo. Woo! There it is. There it is. Henry Cejudo comes in at number 4 for me.
A little high.
It's high enough. Because, hear me out, Olympic gold medalist, right? Very impressive. 2-division champ, also very impressive. He, as of right now, holds accolades that almost no one else has. He, as of right now, holds a resume that almost no one else has, and that's possibly the most impressive wrestling resume you can have as a Olympic gold medalist and a 2-division champ in the most competitive fight league in the world. He defeated Demetrius Johnson, who at that point was like the Jose Aldo of the flyweight division. Unstoppable. I think he still holds the record for most title defenses. Coming in at number 3, this might shock a few. We mentioned him in the intro, and I am so excited to see this guy continue to fight. Mark O. Madsen, the Danish dog, as I like to call him, fought in Copenhagen last weekend in his home country. He has one fight in the UFC. One. That was his UFC.
Saturday.
Yep, Saturday was his UFC debut. One from a TKO, which is impressive in and of itself because he's a natural wrestler, an Olympic wrestler for the Danish national team. He has a 9-0 professional fighting record. He fought 7 times in his last 18 months, which is pretty impressive cardio-wise. He, as of right now, is 3-3-3, meaning all of his 9 fights, he's won 3 by the decision, 3 by TKO, and 3 by submission. I think that's very important to know that this man has enough cardio to go the distance. He's a talented enough striker to win in TKO KO finishes. And obviously, he's got the wrestling background that everyone in the UFC desires. So Mark Madsen is a name to watch. He is 3 on my list because of his freshness in the UFC and his potential that I see him going towards. Number 2, Khabib Nurmagomedov, the most dominant fighter in the UFC today. We saw a promo just before Khabib Poirier, and I didn't really like what was said in the promo. It said something like, Khabib is the most dominant champion to ever live. I don't agree with that. However, Khabib fighting at lightweight is the most dominant fighter in the world today. Whether he's going to hang up the shoes or not, and we don't know that, but as of right now, he's the most dominant wrestler in the sport, in the world. And coming in at number 1, Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier is the most impressive wrestler to ever fight in the UFC. I make this list basically based off of records, statistics, who they've fought, and just their performance. And Daniel Cormier's wrestling performance is by far more spectacular than any other wrestler in the world. Khabib Nurmagomedov wins titles and wins fights, as I've said, by doing the same thing. Daniel Cormier picks guys up in a Matt Hughes versus Frank Trigg-like fashion and slams them on the ground. Daniel Cormier is one of the smaller heavyweights in height comparison. In strength, probably pretty close to that as well. But he picked up and dropped on his head Stipe Miocic. He did the same to Alexander Gustafsson. He submitted a massive Derek Lewis. This man is one of the strongest and most impressive wrestlers to grace the sport.